We did a overture to the Bartered Bride by Bedřich Šmekna, and then we did the Tchaikovsky Symphony No. 6 called the Pathétique Pathetic, which was his last work, actually, his last fully completed work. He had a No. 7, but some student finished it. It doesn't even sound like Tchaikovsky. But that 6 was one of my favorites, and our music director likes it a lot. We did a who was our soloist for that? You know, I can't remember what the soloist was for that.
All right, I'm about to share this.
I probably think of it when I'm not trying. That's always what happens.
Well, I work on another group who call themselves the Tidewater Hemp Coalition. We're going to be on 22nd of June at Crocs over there on 19th Street.
Okay.
2nd of June. I need to write this
So
down.
you're with the Tidewater Hemp Coalition. You guys start
Are about the possibility of cannabis.
Alright, be able to share this.
Just any number of possibilities.
Right.
May I have that pen?
Sure.
Thank you. So on Tidewater Hemp Coalition, I know where Crocs is.
Screen share that. That's what's live. Okay, now I just need to figure out how to share this. I guess I'll just do this.
What time?
Who's playing?
7 o'clock in the morning it started.
What is
7
it?
p.m.
June what?
And
June
that's
22nd.
6:22. Ed McCann just asked me to for the whole chapter here,
Right.
and
There is a normal chapter here?
there is.
I was looking.
There's a normal. It's called Hampton Roads Normal. I am the administrator on the page and the director.
Okay.
The former director kind of flipped out a lot of the charter board members, and he resigned, including me. He flipped me out, and I was like called Ed, and I was like, something's going on with this guy. And I don't dislike him or anything, but I hope he continues to come. I certainly don't want to squelch anybody's efforts towards any kind of cannabis or hemp activism.
Right.
So, right now, the name of the game with Normal is just basically attend the state events. We got a July 4th thing.
Does anybody have anything set up through amphitheaters or artists or the Lock-In Festival? Is there any representation at Lock-In at all?
You mean like getting booths and stuff like that?
Yeah, they have a whole row of nonprofits at Lock-In that you can apply, get accepted, go. It doesn't cost you anything. You just have to work your booth and your booth.
Can you write this information, or can I write?
Yeah, write it down.
We'll discuss it later on.
Okay. He's about to get started then. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I want that information because I need to do that, some of that. But
I hope this works.
doing my first meeting is on June 2nd up
In Hampton. Okay.
Okay, that looks like it's working. Yep, that works.
Good.
All right, so
Looks normal. Our ML.
Do you meet regularly?
We try to do once a month right now.
all right, we're going to get start down to business in about 10 minutes. I'm going to give people a chance to join on here.
Okay.
And then, I scheduled it so we're buffered in the middle for
Right.
meeting and all, and there's only 4 of us. We'll be out of here before 8 o'clock or 8:30 anyway. So,
Okay.
Right.
I think everyone will greatly benefit from a structured meeting like this.
Yeah.
I know I've met with all 3 of you on the exact same level one-on-one.
Right.
So, even though we haven't talked in probably a year or two, still we've discussed this stuff, and but this is just a more formal setting. This is kind of getting stuff going, so because we need to get action happening now. So let's keep on with what we're doing here. It sounds great. I'm actually kind of half-ass paying attention, but I'm also trying to get this up. So about 10 minutes, we'll get rolling.
Cool.
Sorry.
The Hampton Public Library at 4207 Victoria Boulevard. And I'm.
Do you have a
He's
Facebook page
kinda,
that you announce stuff on?
Yeah, Facebook.
Right.
Hampton Roads Normal.
Oh,
NORML. Right. And seeing that I'm just getting started, I'm sort of following TJ's lead because he's been doing this for longer. And I hope that the guy that was the former, the director that just resigned, will come to the meetings because I think he's a good guy. I just think he misunderstood my intentions to see what happened is we chartered a group, and the man just decided arbitrarily that he was going to kick somebody in the charter group out without asking the other board members. And I said, no, that's not kosher. That's not okay. And he said, yes, it is. I'm the director. And I said, sorry, it is. And I called Ed, and he said, yeah, you're right, it is. 2 days later, Ed called me, and he said, you want to be the director? And I was like, well, okay. I'll do what I can, do the best I can. No, I think I'll be all right at it.
Where do you meet again?
The address is 4207 Victoria Boulevard. It's not far from the Air and Space Museum. It comes up.
Yeah, Jatan, there's the event page right there.
right. Okay.
You meet it at like the third Tuesday of the month or something like that?
Usually it's the first Monday, but if you'll go to the Facebook page and click on the events tab,
So if I look on Facebook, it'll come right up.
should. My last name is Scott Harris. Scott Harris. I'm going public. So if you have any trouble finding the page, just get in touch with me.
Scott, can you share links on the Hampton Roads Normal page as Hampton Roads Normal on your phone?
Yes. Oh, my phone?
Yeah.
No.
Because I'm about to put the link to the Hangout on your Facebook page.
Well, I can. You're on my page right now. If you'll let me sign in as a guest or something, you can probably help yourself. Just go with that. What you're doing.
That's West Virginia. Oh, could I get somebody to take notes tonight too, please?
Certainly.
Okay, or minutes or whatever you want to call them.
Does it matter? It's in pen.
Nah.
I'll put it in the back.
Cool. Yeah, or you could just do it around the front of the agenda. It's going to follow the agenda. So we got that. I shared that on your page. You told me to sign out. I don't know how far we can go with this because I got wires coming everywhere, Scott. You might have to slide over here for a second and do it. All right. Yeah, you can log in real quick. You want to slide over here and log in and share that on the Hampton Roads Normal page? Sure. And actually, if you just hit Control-P or right-click and paste, it'll give you all the information, everything that I just post on every other page.
All right.
I'm sorry to be here.
Whoops. Backspace.
Maybe not.
All right. Let's hope I can remember my password. think I do.
What have you been up to, man?
Now, how do I do this here, buddy?
Go to the left-hand side, see the Hampton Road's normal.
Boss, I'm signed in as me right now.
No, go to the left-hand side underneath your face there. And Hampton Road's normal. There you go.
Got it.
Click that. And then scroll down. You gotta like click and scroll. You can't do it on that on Windows 8 or whatever the hell this crappy program is. You gotta go all the way to the side. There you go. Figured it out.
Where?
And now just post a status update.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay. And that will be Safe Access Virginia
You
Meeting.
just hit Control B.
Control B.
B. And then hit post.
Cool. Excellent. Done.
All right, then sign out here so I don't post it you accidentally later on.
All right.
So you still living in your old St. house? Cool. Is it just you there or what? Dad there? Oh, your mom's somehow. Okay. I know it was your granddad's house, right?
No, my granddad came to live with us.
Oh, okay, okay. So nice. All right, cool. All right, so I think we're good. Let's see what this looks like here. I don't know if there's anybody. There's 0 viewers. Arwen is viewing. Hello, Arwen. Oh, somebody else is boy. Cool. All right. Well, welcome to the Safe Access Virginia Hampton Road Regional Meeting. I hope y'all can hear me all right. I'm about to go into the actual PowerPoint presentation and discuss stuff. You won't be able to see the people here, but you will be able to see the PowerPoint presentation that we are looking at, and I hope you can hear me. If not, just type me a message or whatever, or to the Hampton Road Formal or Safe Access Virginia Facebook pages, and we will get it here, and we'll know to try and fix something. Anyway, like I said, I'm TJ Thompson. I am okay, it froze up on me. Sorry about that. We'll get it right. All right. What is Safe Access Virginia? Safe Access Virginia and our parent organization, Americans for Safe Access, we are fighting, working towards getting full, safe, legal access to medical cannabis, which is the scientific term for marijuana. And we're working, Safe Access Virginia is working on the Virginia level, as well as on the federal level. We work with the Virginia representatives to the federal government. But our focus right now is on getting a law passed in Virginia in 2015. Americans for Safe Access, grassroots, 50,000 members plus, and that's nationwide, and we are working to try and change public policy, educate the public, local, state, and federal level, because some areas you could do it at the local level. Not in Virginia, it has to be on the state level. Our mission for Safe Access Virginia, our goals: educate patients, advocates, healthcare professionals, and other stakeholders. Veterans are a stakeholder group. I'm a member of the veteran stakeholder group, as well as patient. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. And then, you also have lawyers involved, and then you have the actual industry involved once it does become legalized. Those are other stakeholders. But basically, we're working to re-educate the public, get rid of the whole scare of medical cannabis and the stigma associated with it. And we are also working to ensure safe and legal access for patients to therapeutics by introducing and passing legislation in the Virginia General Assembly to regulate medical cannabis. And we will go into that in more detail throughout this presentation. All right, next up, an overview of medical cannabis. It's cannabis sativa is the botanical name. That's the actual Latin name given to it. That's how scientists refer to it as. Marijuana is actually a term that the U.S. federal government started using based upon what the Latinos were using, and it was kind of a combination of a couple different versions of the word because the natives had a very similar word, as well as the people from south of the U.S. border had a different word for it. So now, 483 different identifiable chemical constituents known to exist in cannabis, and they're just now starting to isolate specific ones. So there's a lot of research left to be done as far as what typical research goes through. Most specific class is the cannabinoids, which is what you hear a lot about in the news and what people talk to you about. And there are about 70 that are just unique to the cannabis sativa plant alone, which is why it needs further study as to, why does it have these properties. Most commonly known one, THC, which attaches to your CB1 receptors, which we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And that's THC is one, cannabidiol is another. There's THCA. There's all sorts of them. But those are just a couple of examples. CB1 receptors are found in high concentrations in the brain and spinal cord. They're also present in certain peripheral cells and tissues. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I'm not as in-depth in the science as the vice chair is, and he helped me with this, and so we tried to kind of bring it down to a level that I could understand, because I think if I could understand it, a lot of people could understand it. And knowing the science is really cool and all. I leave that to scientists because I get lost in it. But I do know some great scientists to refer you to if you need to talk to a scientist. CB2 receptors are another receptor that we have, and that's normally what the cannabinoids in cannabis attach to, are either CB1 or CB2 receptors. And the next slide, the human endocannabinoid system, goes into this in detail, kind of gives you some pictures to understand a little bit more, and you see how it actually interacts with each other. They fit like a lock and key through the existing receptors. The endocannabinoid system, or ECS, exists to receive the cannabinoids produced inside the body, called I can never say it right. But again, that's why I leave it up to the scientists. And basically that stimulates the endocannabinoid system and allows the body to produce, maintain and restore, what the endocannabinoid system is there for. And they're just now starting to get into all of that. And then going into the middle of the slide there, CB1 receptors, and actually we'll go to the picture here instead of me just reading out. CB1 receptors, which take the THC, are in the light blue on the human body diagram. CBD doesn't really fit into either one, but you hear people talk a lot about CBD. CBD seems to, as far as research is going right now, seems to enhance, and its properties are enhanced with all the other cannabinoids, and that's what they're trying to figure out is why, why that all interacts.
Yes, CBD is known as a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug.
Right.
That's why it's good for.
Right. It's anti-inflammatory, and that's what they're trying to study with CBD now. And then CBN is what goes to the CB2 receptors, which are the darker blue on the slide, and that is more to do with the immune system. So that cannabis is also a complete protein that provides all 23 amino acids and all what the body requires, to include the ones that we can't produce. So, and very few non-meat products are like that. And cannabis actually has one of the highest concentrations, and its cousin hemp does as well. So again, talking about it for medicinal purposes, there's a lot more. A lot of people talk about, oh, well, I don't want to smoke anything. Well, it's a lot more than just something that you smoke. You can ingest it, you can rub it on your skin. You can vaporize it. There's all sorts of different ways, and you can look up this diagram at the human-solution.org. Look into that for more information. And then the little purple thing on the side is just a picture of the receptors and how the cannabinoids go through and the neurotransmitters. Again, that's pretty deep science for me. All right, science behind the mechanism. I'm going to play this video here, and it's about 6 minutes long. I apologize if you can't hear the audio. If you can't hear the audio, then just take a 6-minute break, I guess. And
they will turn the music down up here. They said they would.
Okay, we want to ask if they can.
You need this on the mechanism.
So if you online can't hear the audio, I will post the links to the YouTube videos as soon as I'm done. I pulled them both off of YouTube. Actually, they're both off the Americans for Safe Access YouTube channel. So we're going to try and get the music turned down. Or no, okay, I'm a slide or two ahead of myself. All right, well, as he's catching up, you don't have to write all this information down.
Yeah, I understand.
Unless you personally want it. To date, more than 15,000 modern peer-reviewed scientific articles on the chemistry and pharmacology of cannabis and cannabinoids have been published, as well as more than 2,000 articles on the body's natural endocannabinoids. So when people say, where's the science? There is research. It's typically just not the type of research that the U.S. federal government recognizes as, solid evidence, and that's what we're fighting. One of the things we're fighting for, and we'll discuss that here in a little bit too. So that's part of the science behind the mechanism. And then also you can go to this website, cannabis-med.org/studies.php, and I'm going to click on it here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it online or not, but I'm going to pull it up here for everybody to see. But whenever I get asked for a case study or whatever, I go here because there are so many case studies here. So that's that. And we're going to go back into the slideshow there. But there you can search them, and they're organized all sorts of different ways. And now we're getting to the video. That's what I wanted right there. I'm going to pause this, scoot this back. And as soon as we get the music turned down on our end, we will watch the video.
She said she turned it down up here. There we go.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so I hope y'all can hear this. And I don't know why I'm still acting like that. It's not working at all. All right, so we're going to play this video now. If I can find my cursor. All right.
Surprisingly, the constituents of the cannabis plant were not well known when we started work many years ago. After 1964, there was a lot of work on THC and some of the other constituents, which we also isolated and elucidated their structures. And for the next 20 years, there was a lot of work on these compounds, and much of the things that we know about these compounds, the activity of these compounds, was done at that time. One thing was not known
This is one of the leading
20 years,
researchers
almost 20 years, and that was the mechanism of THC action. Alan Howlett, young professor at that time of pharmacology at St. Louis, found that there is a receptor, later called CB1, and then a person in England identified a second receptor known as CB2, mostly in the periphery, but pops up in the brain. So now we are sure of two receptors that are present, and THC acts on them and stimulates them and causes the activity when needed. So we went ahead looking for the compounds in the brain and the periphery that would activate these receptors. And in 1992 and 1995, we reported the most important ones. One of them we call the anandamide. Ananda comes from the Sanskrit name of supreme joy, which has turned out to have a different chemical structure from the compound in the plant. Rather strange, I would say, because the two compounds do exactly the same. These compounds are extremely important. They act in a huge number of physiological conditions. They interact with other neurotransmitters. They interact with in other systems as well. So they are important players in our body. So there has been a huge amount of work on these two compounds, anandamide, another one we isolated, the 2-AG. And so today we know quite a lot about the mechanism and how they do, and therefore we can also learn a lot about the ability of plant cannabinoids like THC or synthetic cannabinoids that can act on this system.
We've had somewhat of a moratorium on doing research with smoke marijuana as a medicine. There's this explosion in cannabinoid receptor agonists, antagonists, endocannabinoids, manipulating the endocannabinoid system. But I think it's very exciting, to think about all the potential therapeutics that can come. As I mentioned, I've sort of become a student of plants as medicine, and I'm in favor of cannabis as a medicine. I'm a cancer doctor, and not a day goes by that I don't have to talk to a patient about medicine to increase their appetite, decrease their nausea, decrease their pain, help their sleep, and decrease their depression. Now, instead of writing prescriptions for 5 different medicines that all have potential side effects, I can tell a patient, you can take one medicine, and in fact, you can grow it yourself. So, I think the whole plant is pretty good medicine. It's hard to beat nature.
There's also other herbal products that aren't available by prescription that you can go into a health food store and find. Those are like echinacea or St. John's wort. Those aren't approved FDA products. They do meet FDA standards for labeling and that sort of information, but these aren't FDA approved products for a medical condition. These are more like dietary supplements. One course of action for medical marijuana is to, of course, remove it from the scheduling system altogether and create a new herbal dietary product known as marijuana.
We know way more now than we did 10 years ago. There are clinical trials in MS, in fibromyalgia, in rheumatoid arthritis, in cancer pain, in neuropathic pain, which didn't exist 10 years ago.
An important aspect of quality of life is to be able to have a locus of control over your own destiny. One patient, multiple sclerosis patient, told me that I would rather be in one of their prisons than a prison of my own body. When he found out that cannabis allowed him to walk and actually have some locomotion, he was able to move out of a wheelchair. And so he actually moved himself from Illinois to Washington because we have some degree of acceptability of medical cannabis there.
What we tend to forget as physicians, I think, is that we have evolved with the plants, and that manufactured pharmaceuticals contain structures that aren't found in nature and are more difficult for the body to metabolize than structures that are found in nature. At any rate, I think more and more physicians are hearing from their patients that cannabis is useful for a wide variety of conditions. And I think that's why I'm getting these referrals, is because the physician says to themselves, I've heard this before, and I've seen this patient for a long time, and they have credibility with me. Within the last year or two, we've had the American College of Physicians, the second largest physician organization in the country, support medical marijuana. We've had the American Medical Association, the largest physician organization in the United States, call for rescheduling of cannabis so it can be prescribed and more research can be done. We've had 14 state nurses association call for medical marijuana to be legalized, as well as the American Nurses Association, the American Public Health Association, and maybe another 100 or so health-related organizations.
In 1999, the National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine published the most comprehensive report to date on the medical efficacy of cannabis. In 2000, the University of California established the Medical Cannabis Research Center to follow up on the mandate of the 1999 report. The Medical Cannabis Research Center's findings are significant because they shore up the scientific credibility of medical cannabis and answer the critics who say there's insufficient proof that cannabis is medicine.
That's good.
And there was just a quick video to give me a break from talking. And I mean, it said a lot more than I can say that quick. So that's why I chose that video. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Something that really quick on the mic.
Yes.
I ain't seen no video.
There's a man named Rick Simpson from Canada. There's a website, phoenixtears.ca. You find out about his story, but what he found out is that there's been research that's done in Madrid, Spain, and New Zealand that confirm that THC kills cancer cells on contact. It kills them selectively, as opposed to conventional chemotherapy, which just kills everything and you hope it kills the tumor before it kills you. But he started growing the indica species.
This is Rick Simpson of
Yeah, it's Rick Simpson.
you mentioned some
PhoenixTears.org.
PhoenixTears.org.
Yeah.
PhoenixTears.ca.
Or .ca, I'm sorry, yeah. And then there's also Run from the Cure. It's the documentary that he has on YouTube.
PhoenixTears.ca, California.
No, Canada.
Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
Phoenix Tears.
Well, that details how hashish oil, which is a concentrated preparation of cannabinoids, can be used as a form of chemotherapy. He actually cured something like 2,000 people using this method. So it's not just good for appetite stimulation, nausea, and it can actually cure cancer. Cells, but CBD actually inhibits
some trials on that. That's what happens. It's basically it's at the final stages now.
Right.
And again, they have to isolate, like for to have a full peer-reviewed triple-blind placebo study and all that stuff. Like I mean, we're 60 years at the minimum probably away from that all happening.
Well, actually, the research in Madrid, Spain, and New Zealand was double-blind and peer-reviewed.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, though. It has to be tested again and again in different subjects and before it's an accepted science. And now the anecdotal evidence is there. And that's what we're waiting for is...
The research in Spain was not anecdotal. That was scientific.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, though. They have to have cases upon cases upon cases
before... I think what TJ is trying to say is that the American government will not really recognize our studies done in other countries until we can do it here, and we're actually years away from being able to get a study. Hell, we can't even get a crop of hemp grown right now.
So here's some of the conditions, like Jack was saying. I mean, and I'm not discounting any of that information that Jack shared, because I've actually gathered a lot of information from a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. And it is really good information to know when you're working on this effort. Cancer, HIV/AIDS, MS, post-traumatic stress disorder, that's what I use medical cannabis for. Epilepsy, arthritis, nausea, neuropathic pain, I can never say that.
Neuropathy.
I know neuropathy, neuropathic pain, I think is how it is. Anxiety, depression, movement disorders, inflammation. Like we were saying, CBD is a really good anti-inflammatory. It has great anti-inflammatory properties. And with the pain relief properties of the other cannabinoids, the two together work all of them together, I guess I should say. Because like I was saying, they haven't isolated what cannabinoids react with what parts of the body, and that's what I'm saying. It's going to take them like 60 years to figure that out.
They have also said that the best way to do it is they all piggyback off of each other. That whole plant natural-based medicine is what they've determined is
so far the best. Am I making funny noises? Oh,
Sorry.
no, that's cool. So there's a lot of other conditions that it's known to help treat. So and it even if it only reduces the amount of pills, like the doctor was saying in the video. Good, thank you. Like the doctor was saying in the video, that prescribing a pill to treat the side effects of a pill to treat the side effects of a pill, it's a snowball effect, and pretty soon you're taking like a dozen pills just for one condition, and it's because the first pill gave you the side effects and so on and so forth. So even just being able to reduce any of your pill intake greatly increases quality of life for a lot of patients. So moving on, finding your voice, another video. This is about legislation, citizen lobbyists. That's the next part of the agenda we're going into, and basically how to speak with your legislators, how to make your voice known, how to put your story together. I get all the time, oh, well, I'm afraid of, repercussions if I come out and all that. So this is kind of how you figure out what you want to say and where you feel it best to say it, because I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable when I'm working with them. And I always tell people, work in the capacity in which you feel best. Don't burn yourself out. I'd rather you work a little bit and give me a lot in that little bit than, work a lot and burn yourself out really quick. Because, and you'll see me, I go through spurts. I'll work really, really hard for 2 months, and I'll take a month to where I kind of lay back. I'm still doing stuff, but I'm not working as hard, and I'm not, like, to the grindstone. There are periods in my life where I literally get tired of talking about medical cannabis. And because I sit there, and from the time I get up in the morning, I'm answering text emails I got from all the insomniac patients overnight. All my friends are insomniacs in the fight. So I go to work and I've got people text me. I'm trying to field all that kind of stuff all throughout the day, and then get home and it's time to catch up on all the emails and stuff that I didn't get to check at work. So yeah, sometimes it's like that. A couple weeks ago, we'll discuss this in a little bit too. Representative Blumenauer introduced an amendment to, and he's a congressman from Oregon. He introduced an amendment to the VA appropriations bill for medical cannabis for veterans. And again, for about 48 hours of sleep, I was nonstop phone, email, text, just because that's how it happens. And so yeah, you just decide what your capacity is. Don't let me be the example of what you have to give. Like John here helped us out with just getting the space. And I am greatly appreciative for that. Even if there's only us sitting right here, I'm still greatly appreciative, because that was my biggest hurdle to overcome thus far in having a local meeting, because we don't have much money, and fundraising is something we'll talk about shortly too. So 6.5 minutes. What time is it? Yeah, we've got time, because I think this is the last video, but this is really going to tell you. And again, go to YouTube and search for the Americans for Safe Access video channel. Click on their videos. You will find all these videos. They are a great thing to watch when you're bored. Even just turn on and listen to it in the background. And I'm going to stop for a second because we have the Navy flying overhead right now. We are in the midst of one of the largest portions of the military-industrial complex in the world, right here in Hampton Roads. And Oceana is only a few miles down the beach from us where we are. Yes, we're at Baja Cantina on 23rd Street, the ocean front, and I greatly appreciate them. Yeah, he's a reformer, so you probably can. So, yeah. So yeah. So we're gonna. Okay, the jet has flown over, and we're gonna watch this. And the lady who's face you see right here is the executive director of Americans for Safe Access, Steph Shearer, and she is one of my mentors. She is one of the most awesome people I know. She maybe comes up a little bit past my shoulder, I think. She is humongous. Her physical size aside, she is one of the biggest people I know. I can't say enough about Steph. She's taught me a lot, and she's done a lot across the country. So we're gonna let Steph talk now.
One of the most important parts of becoming a medical cannabis advocate is finding your voice. It's one thing for an advocate to rattle off facts and numbers, but as far as becoming a spokesperson, figure out a way to relate that information in a way that's going to resonate with people. This section of the training is going to help you go through a process of personalizing the issues that you know of medical cannabis into your own story, into a message that you own. The number one role of a medical cannabis spokesperson is to put a face on this issue. By personalizing an issue and by becoming a spokesperson, you're putting a face on medical cannabis. So it's no longer this issue that's happening out in the ether, debated in Washington, or what is the role of federal government in healthcare. It's something that you are bringing to the people in front of you. I very rarely think of myself as a patient unless I'm in a room with a doctor. If you ask me who I am, I think this is true for most of us, we're going to have a long list. I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a godmother, I'm an activist. Part of becoming a medical cannabis spokesperson is really thinking through how to talk about medical cannabis through that voice. But to family and friends, to other peers, there's definitely a very different way that I talk about medical cannabis and why I need them to be a part of this movement. The third role that a medical cannabis spokesperson plays, for many people who are not dealing with medical cannabis as a daily part of their life, it's easy for them to put off thinking about this issue or acting on this issue. You're reminding the public and elected officials that this is an issue that's affecting people every day. By becoming a medical cannabis spokesperson, you're creating an urgency because you're asking people to make a decision, to think about medical cannabis as it relates to you, as it relates to your experiences. And that's not something they can put off into an intellectual exercise. It's something that they have to decide. If you ask someone point blank, should I go to jail? Right? They have to make that decision. They have to decide how they feel about medical cannabis in that moment. Another role of being a medical cannabis spokesperson is educating the public and educating elected officials. I think you'll find as you become a medical cannabis advocate and share that with family and friends, that you will find that actually everybody has an opinion about medical cannabis, and they actually really want to talk about it. There's a lot of misinformation out there. As a medical cannabis advocate, I guarantee that you have thought through how your society is going to provide you this medicine in much greater detail than most of the public or elected officials. So as a spokesperson, you have an opportunity, but also an obligation to share your experiences, to help people go through a process of thinking about medical cannabis. You may enjoy privileges that other people in this movement don't. People who are in HUD housing, who, if they speak out about medical cannabis, could lose their homes. Individuals who are afraid to speak out about medical cannabis because they could lose their veterans benefits. As a medical cannabis spokesperson, you can frame this issue in real human terms. You can point out the specific injustices that are happening to medical cannabis patients and their providers. You can shine a light on federal raids and shine a light on injustices in the courtrooms. Point out to your community that there are individuals who could lose their housing if they were vocal about these issues. Most people in this country have a preconceived notion about marijuana. The burden of disproving stereotypes and getting people to think about this issue in another way falls on our shoulders as medical cannabis advocates. If you want people to hear you, you have to make sure that they're not distracted by something else about you. If you are going to be speaking at a city council meeting as a spokesperson, you have to dress appropriately. You have to make sure that they're not going to dismiss you. We do have to be very conscious of the stereotypes that are already surrounding marijuana, whether or not they relate to us or not. Another challenge that we face as being medical cannabis spokespeople is not repeating the language, vernacular of our opponents. We're setting a tone for how we want the discourse around this issue to look like. What is the vernacular that you want your elected official to use when he's talking about you and your community? If you aren't using the language that you want others to use when talking about marijuana as a medicine, talking about cannabis therapeutics, then how do you expect them to use the right language? California is figuring out how to regulate an entirely new system that has never happened in the United States of America. But it's part of your job as a spokesperson to explain that issue, not to chime in with the opposition. And the final challenge that I want you to think about, that there are legal and societal impacts about being a medical cannabis advocate, to make sure that you're not incriminating yourself in a way that you're not prepared for. For me as a medical cannabis spokesperson, I've chosen to let the media know and elected officials know that until I'm living in a city or a country that has changed their laws to protect my safe access, that I am in fact a criminal. That means that I am telling people that I am actively buying cannabis in an illicit market. It is a jeopardy that we face as medical cannabis spokespeople. So before you put yourself in a situation that you're not comfortable with, maybe right now talking about being a caregiver and providing medicine for hundreds of patients, telling people where you're growing in your home, any way that you'd be putting yourself not just in legal jeopardy, but putting yourself in jeopardy of theft, child custody. These are all issues that you have to think about as a medical advocate, because the risks to medical cannabis patients is very real.
That's good. Any questions on that?
So that's the ED.
Executive Director, yes.
For
Steph is amazing. She is one of my most favorite people in the world. All right, so we are segueing, since we're talking about finding our voice as an medical cannabis advocate. We're going to go ahead and slide into what's currently on the books in Virginia. And this is current legislation, or well, I mean, this is a current law. It is a completely ineffective law for patients, though, as it is written and as federal regulations are. Basically, you'll hear people, especially, I'll start referring to it. I always forget the number until it's time to come up the lobby in Richmond. But 18-2511, you'll hear people say that a lot. And that's what this is. This is what Virginia has. It's the oldest medical cannabis law in the country, enacted in 1979 when they thought the country was going to legalize. And then Reagan got elected president, and Nancy Reagan, as First Lady, her priority was just say no, the DARE campaign, all that stuff. And it included marijuana in that. So it basically took one step forward and two steps back once Reagan took office. Carter was seeing a lot of, well, we could even back then they were looking for ways to relieve the prison population. So that shows you how long, and that's where the medical marijuana law came from, because they thought, terminally ill patients shouldn't be locked up. And there's actually a Virginian on the federal medical marijuana program now, Herb Rosenfeld, and he's very active in organizing as well. He lives in Florida. He's originally from Virginia. His family's from Virginia. He comes to Virginia quite frequently, but he gets a canister of pre-rolled marijuana cigarettes or joints from the federal government every month. And he has I think it's autoimmune disease.
Multiple congenital cartilaginous exostosis.
Yeah. See, that's why I leave the science to the scientists. Whoa. That's Dr. Jack over there.
Dr. Jack.
But yeah, so So, and you know, that's where Virginia was going with their law. And Virginia's always been a kind of incremental state with laws anyway. So even if the federal government would have just outright legalized, Virginia still would have done probably a program to work their way into that. We are only focusing on medical, though. I'll just give you a history of where this law came from. And again, it's possession of marijuana, THC, Delta-9 THC, to a valid prescription issued by a medical doctor for cancer, glaucoma. Pharmacists can dispense it, according to Virginia law. Now, when you look at how pharmacies and doctors work with prescriptions, that's where it becomes ineffective because everything's regulated on the federal level. The DEA and FDA regulate the prescription pads and distribution and what drugs pharmacies can distribute. So that's why it's ineffective for patients. Moving on to the next slide. Recent legislation attempts concerning medical cannabis. This is on the state level. House Bill 1136, which that was going to amend and reenact 18.2.2511 of the Code of Virginia, prescription marijuana, and that's the one we just looked at. Delegate Morgan, Evan, England, and Tyser. And as you can see, only one of them is not retired or resigned. I don't know if Evan is still in office or not. I'll have to double check that. And I thought I looked all this over. I missed that name. However, and this is the history of it, this past year, January, I guess it's February this year, early February, during the General Assembly session, Delegate Bob Marshall, HB 684, he attempted to completely repeal and completely outlaw medical marijuana in the Commonwealth of Virginia. HB 684 was just asking to basically completely repeal that law and make marijuana completely illegal in Virginia. We lobbied around that as Safe Access Virginia, and there were a few other groups involved as well. I think SSDP, Normal, and maybe one or two other groups on the state level. And it was tabled in committee, which means they didn't pass it. They didn't completely kill it. They just said, we'll table it until next session. But normally when something's tabled, they never talk about it again. That's what happened to HB 1136 a couple years ago, which Delegate Morgan introduced. And I think Delegate Morgan was the one that was the pharmacist. And like I said, he retired. Now, we lost our champion, and actually we lost both of our champions really quick in the Virginia General Assembly with Delegate Morgan and Delegate Griffith. However, page 2 of this, House Bill number 4498, the Legitimate Use of Medicinal Marijuana Act, from Congressman Morgan Griffith, Republican from Virginia, which means he is now in the U.S. House of Representatives. So he is now gone from being our champion in the Commonwealth. And actually, I don't even know if he was necessarily a champion when he was in the General Assembly, but he worked a lot. And now he is actually becoming a champion in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I can go into detail on what this bill does because I had a conversation with one of his constituents last night, and my mentor, Michael Crowich, we were talking about him earlier. He's an Air Force veteran, the executive director of Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access, mentor of mine. He's actually kind of the one that got me to where I am in the medical marijuana fight. So let's pull up these notes real quick from last night. Let's see how I do this. So let's see. That's the next slide. All right. So Congressman Griffith's bill, Legitimate Use of Medical Marijuana Act. He's asking to reschedule to Schedule 2. And the reason being, morphine is a Schedule II drug. Morphine is prescribed a lot. Morphine is probably overprescribed. So his mentality as a Republican working with the U.S. House of Representatives is to take incremental steps, and basically he's saying Schedule 1's the wrong schedule number. You know, it's not any worse than morphine. We have enough anecdotal evidence to prove that without having empirical evidence. So he's asking Schedule 2. Schedule 2 will allow it to not only be prescribed, but also to be researched. So that's why he wanted Schedule 2. It's an incremental step. And, you know, something we had in our discussion about it last night with Michael Crowitz and myself, you know, it's like micromanaging doctors is not a conservative trait. And so that's kind of where we're going with this. And Michael worked with Congressman Griffith to get this, you know, this legislation worded properly and all, how patients might see it worded. And Michael works across the country endlessly with patients, and his focus is on veterans, you know, making sure that veterans are covered. And you know, and that's one of the things, you know, we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. Kentucky, Illinois just passed their law, you know, post-traumatic stress. I think it's going to be added to their law. Michigan just added post-traumatic stress to their law. We just lost a fight adding. We just lost a fight adding it in the Colorado law. Colorado does not have post-traumatic stress disorder. I think the plug's way up there, and I don't think I can reach it, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to go fast. So I'm going to pick up the pace here. Sign-on letter from Congress to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. There's a link here, and basically it's a bipartisan group Congressman Griffith's bill is going to also make Virginia's law work. That was one of his stipulations for introducing the bill, was he wanted something to make Virginia's law work. All right, so the next one, Congressman Blumenauer from Oregon, I referenced him earlier, said we discussed some stuff that he's been doing. This is a sign-on letter to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, just asking to leave states alone, basically, let states enact their own laws, states' rights issue, and allow us to study it, basically. And you can find out more about that. I'll post these links and all later on. Get them to you. Like I said, I'm rushing now because my computer's about to die. Bill introduced possible key legislators. Joint Commission on Healthcare is a committee in the Commonwealth. It has all the doctors that are in the House. There's 3 doctors in the House. I don't think there's any in the Senate. But that's the people that know the most about healthcare get together a few times a year. If Bill has their blessing, a lot of times that's how representatives in the Commonwealth and to the General Assembly vote, is based upon what that commission says. Health and Institutions Committee, that's one of the committees. That's the main committee that we want to have a bill introduced in. Of course, the Justice Committee. Every bill in Virginia, if it's going to become a law, has to go to the Courts of Justice Committee. Probably beats up this committee in the Virginia General Assembly. We have begun already working with key members of that committee, and and that's where we are right now. Hampton Roads Senators, that's a list of all the senators and all their phone numbers from Hampton Roads. House delegates, there's I think 19 or 20 from Hampton Roads. And so we have a good representation in the General Assembly. So that's why we need to make sure we're getting out and working with these people, because I've already been told by key, strong members of the House delegates, if we inform the General Assembly and we work with them, he will introduce a bill for us. And outreach. We need to do outreach. Local level, I'd like to get together. If somebody's willing to host a movie night, I will put everything together and somebody can host it. Get out to farm markets, hand out materials, civic leagues, give presentations in civic league meetings, medical associations, talk to doctors, lawyer associations, labor associations, all sorts of stuff. On the state level, we need to establish and maintain a relationship with our representatives. Work with Safe Access Virginia is good. There are other organizations to work with. If you don't feel Safe Access Virginia is where you best fit in, I will say that. Federal level, establish and maintain relationships with representatives. Just meet them. You're going to meet with their aides. Establish a relationship. So that way you just call up. Hey, Bob, man, I'm just checking in with you. It's been a while since we chatted. I just want to find out what your office is doing. What such and such, what Senator such and such is doing. So that's outreach. Fundraising. I'm just going to go through this really quick. We'll talk about that in a minute. Timeline. Now until August, we need to get in our representatives' offices, especially here in Hampton Roads. I mean, you don't have to be a constituent. It's best to go with the constituent. However, they will listen to local people. And, and again, if you're a member of a steering committee with Safe Access Virginia, board member of any other organization like Hampton Roads Normal or Citizen Fiscal Drug Policy, then you can normally get an appointment with people in your area, even on the state level. Like I said, I'm working with representatives all over the state as well as all over the country on this stuff. So it just takes making that relationship. Ask candidates their stances on cannabis elections coming up, midterm elections for the federal level. So we need to push candidates to stand up and take a stance. Or, if they don't take a stance, let everybody know that they don't take a stance. Letter to the editor, spread the word, raise funds. August through December, work with legislators to propose bill. That's when it's going to get down to nitty-gritty, and we're going to actually start seeing what's going to take shape and how it's going to happen in January. Work with legislators to find sponsors for the bill. We've identified some people. We still don't have somebody that I can come out in the news tomorrow and say, we have this person is going to definitely write a bill. I have some very strong possibilities. Continue to nurture relationships, raise funds, work with all representatives. Like I said, we kind of branch out once we get closer to make sure that all representatives are contacted. January 2015 is our goal right now. Have a medical marijuana bill introduced in the General Assembly in 2014 or January 2015. The Lieutenant Governor already said that he's going to introduce, have something introduced in the Senate, and that's Democrat controlled with his tie-breaking vote. And like I said, I think we're going to have something introduced in the House. So it's looking fairly promising right now. And I mean, that could all change in a heartbeat. Stuff will fall apart real quick if we don't work with them. That's the biggest thing. If we get out en masse and tell them that this is what we want, they'll do it. All right. Closing. Next Hampton Roads meeting, we're going to just discuss this later on because there's only 4 of us here. But we will discuss this amongst ourselves. Informal events, like I said, I'd like to host a movie night. We need to do fundraisers. Let's see, statewide meeting, be on the lookout for that. A lot of times we have meetings in Richmond because that's kind of central to the whole Commonwealth. It's easier for everybody to convene there. So in closing, thanks for joining us, and I just wanted to pump everybody up.
I'm pumped up.
Want you to rock a head world. You know you got to put up a fight. Head world. Keep bringing up the rest of your life. You got to put up a fight. You got to put up a fight. Head world. You know you got to put up a fight. Head world. You're more than a champion.